So within the Muslim American community, violent extremism is a relatively rare occurrence. This is not to say it's an insignificant occurrence, it's a very significant occurrence, but it is a rare occurrence. So within the community itself, there are many problems parents worry about. They worry about their child um, developing a drug abuse issue. They worry about their children losing their identity. They worry about their children being bullied. Violent extremism, because it afflicts such a small number of people, again, statistically speaking, within the American Muslim community, it is not something that is on the radars of many parents. Actually, to the extent that some parents are completely unaware when their children have become involved. And I think the case that comes to mind is what happened in Illinois, where there was a family with three siblings who decided to board a plane to Turkey with the plan to go join ISIS. Law enforcement picked them up at the airport, arrested them, and when law enforcement came back to the house, the mother was so unaware that she actually went upstairs to look for the son because she thought the son was still asleep upstairs. So that gives you an idea of how little the mother knew about their planning, as well as what their actions had been over the last few weeks or months leading up to them trying to leave for Syria. The Muslim community has not been able to have a very open dialogue about it because I think people are very afraid. There's some amount of denial, but there's also a lot of fear because a lot of Muslim communities feel that they're being observed, that they're being spied upon, and they're afraid to bring up topics for discussion that can potentially land them under some sort of a surveillance list. Similarly, there has been fear within the Muslim community that if they were to engage law enforcement will then give them the wrong kind of help. And there have been, instances where actually community members have felt that their marginalized members were almost groomed for the role of violent extremists so that they could then be arrested through the use of a paid informant. And there have been many such instances. There actually has been an instance where members of a mosque became so concerned they actually called their local law enforcement. And then it was discovered that the person who was provoking all these people into these extremist ideas was actually an informant hired by one of the law enforcement agencies. Mothers have a very important role to play in the life of any child. Now, when it comes to a devout Muslim, the role is magnified. There's plenty of examples within the life of the Prophet, as well as Quran, which value caring for and being obedient to your parent. Now, a mother or a father, for that matter, does not plan for their son to go to a far-off land on what is effectively going to be a one-way trip and die. Most parents would want their son or daughter to go into a profession that they are proud of. So I think there is a great need for both the Muslim community as well as law enforcement to figure out a way of doing things differently. Within the Muslim community, men and women are segregated in almost all public religious spaces. So what that means is that if law enforcement comes in, and even if they decide upon policies or if they educate, a lot of time their focus and their audience are men. Men are often the leaders in a community or in a mosque, and that's who the law enforcement speaks to. That pretty much excludes the Muslim mothers. But the mothers who are behind a physical barrier, they are the ones who need to be able to get those resources. They need that education. They need that phone number where they can call and be sure that their son will actually be guided away from violent extremism instead of being led into a sting operation. How do you do that? There are many ways to do that. I mean, one of the ways is to use female officers who can build liaisons with the community, who can have um, relationships with the community, where they can actually build trust, and they can teach the women ways that they can watch what's going on in the house. I mean, know what's going on before it happens. We need to now think long term. It is no longer acceptable either for the Muslim community, nor should it be for the law enforcement, for them not to join forces to prevent these kids from falling into violent extremism. There needs to be an attitude that's not very different from what you see, for example, with school shootings. I mean, you don't go around when you hear about a 19 or an 18 or a 17-year-old, when you hear them talking about guns and when you hear them talking about how they're going to blow up the school, you don't go and attach a paid informant to them so that they can egg them on and tape them and figure out how you can trap them. You don't then watch to see who else they talk to. You try to contain it. You think of it as a contagion. You say, you know what? This kid needs to be contained. This kid needs to be driven away from this destructive path. And that's what's going to make a more resilient community.